And to help us better understand Xi's busy agenda and the China-Egypt priorities, we have Mr. Geoffrey Aronson in the studio. He specializes in Middle East affairs. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
You know, we heard this very busy day in Egypt. President Xi spoke to the Arab League. We heard hope, despair, a lot of economic and development encouragement. What was your take of his speech, and what stood out to you?
Well, again, what stands out here is two important things. One is the economic campaign to expand Chinese opportunities across a broad economic spectrum, not only in Egypt, but we also saw in Saudi Arabia, and we will see in Iran in the next day or so. The second point is to mark this part of the world as an important, not only economic arena for China, but also as a consequence, an important strategic and security concern for China. The Suez Canal, for example, is an economic choke point for Chinese exports to Europe. China is very concerned about the security of the Suez Canal, particularly in an era where Islamic extremists are now running amok in Sinai, bordering the Suez Canal. And in fact, there have been attacks on the canal. So this is not only an economic concern, it's a security concern.
You mentioned the Suez Canal. There was also been discussion of this new trade zone there. The numbers, again, 21 deals, $15 billion. It's a lot of money. Transportation infrastructure. How do you feel China and Egypt's relationship, their trade relationship, their economic relationship has evolved over the years?
Well, China and Egypt share a relatively long history dating back to the post-World War II era. They were collaborators at the Bandung Conference in 1956, I think, where the idea of non-alignment in a third political way was first established. So there's that sense of identity historically. That's where the partnership between the Chinese leadership and the Egyptian leadership was first formed. The current Egyptian president, Sisi, is in many respects the last of the last generation of those officers who mounted a coup in 1952 in Egypt and who subsequently allied in some degree with China. But now we're in a new era where Chinese economic power in particular is being leveraged not only in Egypt but elsewhere, and is seen by Egypt as an important tool in their political security effort to bring prosperity to Egyptians.
So would you say then that this relationship between China and Egypt is not based on ideology, but more on practicality?
Absolutely. There's no ideological axe to grind here except the pursuit of profit.
Egypt also a founding member of the AIIB, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, as well as Saudi Arabia and Iran, the two other stops on President Xi's tour. You know, this bank just opened. What does it say about his presence in these countries during this time, the timing of all of this?
Well, it's not by accident that we have the visit coming on the heels of the publication, for example, of the first official Chinese paper on the Arab world or on the Middle East, which was a fairly comprehensive overview, which made the point that China is interested in creating win-win opportunities throughout the region, is prepared to deal with countries as they exist, as opposed to the way some third party might want them to be. So it's open for business and looking to expand opportunities everywhere, while cognizant of the need to address growing security challenges that include China as well, in some degree as a consequence of its own increasing involvement in that part of the world.
Geoffrey Aronson, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us here.
My pleasure.